Hi, this is William Thayer. I'm talking about the COVID crisis. I'm making a series of videos on what I think we should do to defeat COVID, which is more testing. When I started making these videos about the beginning of April, there were 500,000 COVID cases. Now it's 1.2 million. The deaths were 20,000. Now it's 73,000. It's really time to do something. And I lay out, why it's important to do testing, what it would take to do test machine production, test sample, that's the reagents. All these, what you do is freeze frame this, and then you're going to have to copy the link and go back in and look at it. You could look at it for a title, but you scroll down 50 things, I'm sure, to get my talks. So the outline, I'm really addressing how many, is it not possible to do more testing because we're short on personnel? And I'm going to say absolutely not. So first, let's look at how much testing we are doing and how many people are required to do what we're presently doing. And then look at future testing levels. Obviously, the more tests you do per day, the more people you're going to have to need. Well, do we have enough people? So how much testing are we doing? Okay, so here's a plot of what we're doing in most of most of April, I'm sorry, it was about 150,000. Now maybe in May we're up to about 200,000. Okay, well, 200,000, so what do we need? Do we need 200,000 people to do 200,000 tests a day? No, of course we don't. So let's get an idea of how many people we need to do a test. Now this is Abbott ID now. I use this as a good example. There's many different test machines, so this is not the only test machine. We have test machines that can test 100 people at a time. Obviously that would need less test personnel. So therefore, if I can estimate how many people I need, assuming that the Abbott ID was used to do all the tests, that will be an overestimate. So this machine can do 5 tests per hour. That would be 120 a day, but they round it down to 100 tests a day. That's fine. Okay, and that's a 24-hour day. So in each shift, I'm going to assume 8-hour shift, 5 tests an hour, 40 tests per person. So I'm going to try to get an idea of how many people are required to do 200,000 tests a day if they were all run on an Abbott. And I realized are not all run on an Abbott machine. So if we have 200,000 tests divided by 40 tests per shift, we have 5,000 people running a machine. Now obviously we got to get the raw data, which is the nasal swab from people. So we need 200,000 nose swabs. So what does that require? 200,000 people? I'm not gonna go for that. I'm gonna say that a trained person can do 10 swabs an hour. Okay, that's 80 swabs per 8-hour shift. That's 2,500 people. So I add these two together, I get 7,500 people to do 200,000 tests. Now, if you say, hey, I'm being lowballing that, you can double it. It doesn't matter. It's really not that many people. But what I'm going to do to look at future level is I'm going to assume I'm going to do it on the basis of 100,000 tests a day, and I'm going to be conservative. I'm going to say, hey, it'll take me 4,000 people to do the nose swabs and run the machine to do 100,000 tests a day. So let's look at some future testing levels. And before we look at future testing levels, let's look at what this country is endowed with, which we are endowed with a lot of people that are trained in the medical field, okay? I have one son that's a research nurse, another son that's an internal medicine doctor. We've got lots of great lab techs. So we have in the United States 335,000 lab techs. These are like LabCorp, Quest, etc. If they were running 40 tests a shift, and I'm sure that all of them are capable of doing it, that would be 13 million tests a day. Remember, we're doing 200,000 tests a day. So we're not even using a little bit of our trained personnel that are trained to do lab tests, okay? In addition to that, we've got 1.5 million certified nursing assistants, and these people are entirely capable of doing a nose swab with training running a test machine. If they did 40 of these tests per shift, they could do 60 million tests a day. Okay, and nurses. Again, my son is one of those nurses, 2.9 million nurses times 40 tests a shift, 116 million tests a day. Okay, so you're getting an idea. We have way more trained personnel than we're using. If you just add the certified nursing assistants and nurses together, that's 176 million tests a day. That's half the country, okay, in a day. In addition to that, unfortunately, because of this COVID crisis, we got 30 million people that are unemployed, and I'm sure that a lot of them would like to run a test machine and make some money. So I think they're entirely trainable to do that. We have also 14 million college students that aren't in college, and they're trainable. I mean, they're young, so that means they're kind of invulnerable. Nobody that's under the age of 20 is dying from COVID. And to do a nose swab or to run a relatively simple machine, I think they could learn this in a week at the most. Okay, so we've got a huge supply of very qualified and capable people right there. So, do we have enough people to do COVID testing? Yeah, we got enough people to do COVID testing. We're only utilizing 7,000. Look at all these numbers. Okay, so I'm going to go through what I did in the last section. 200,000 tests per day. 200,000 divided by 40 tests per shift. 5,000 people to do the nose swabs divided by 80. You get 500 people. That's added together 7,500 people to do 200,000 tests. And then I round that up, really, to do 4,000 personnel to do 100,000 tests a day, because what I want to do is multiply each side by 10. The numbers are really easy. So 40,000 people to do 1,000,000 tests a day. Remember how many lab techs we got? 335,000. Easily we could do 1,000,000 tests a day based on personnel. 400,000 to do 10 million tests a day. Well, that would pretty well take all of our lab tech people, but hardly any of the certified nursing assistants that we have. Clearly capable of doing nose swabs, learning to do a machine. And 4 million to do 100 million tests a day. Remember, the certified nurses and the nurses add up to more than 4 million. So we've got the capability to do massive testing from the personnel point of view. Okay? To review that again, 4,000 personnel to do 100,000, 40,000 to 1,000,000, 400,000 to 10 million. That, again, is just basically our lab techs to do 10 million tests a day. And 4 million to do 100 million tests a day. Obviously, we don't have the test machines to do that, but we've got the nurses that are available, we've got the college students, we've got the unemployed. Easily, we could do that if that was our goal. We can do any level of testing we want as far as personnel are concerned. Now, in my prior video, which is the title is up there, COVID and CDC testing, to upper right, and you have to look for the link on one of the first charts in this presentation. What I did is I did a pictorial representation for the state of Michigan, and each of these little blue people represents 100,000 people in Michigan. So 20 in the top row, it represents 2 million, 5 rows, 10 million. That is the population of Michigan, and I gave them a 10% infection rate. That's the red, and I just showed that if you did comprehensive testing, which means testing everybody, and if you did it in a day, it would be 10 million. Okay, we've easily got the personnel to do that. Now, summarizing, we're only testing 200,000 people per day, which is way, way, way below our capability. Testing 10 million a day wouldn't even require us to train new personnel. This is basically the lab tech people would do that. Okay, and we've got so many people that are unemployed and that are trainable. 14 million college students, 30 million unemployed. Okay, that easily would be able to learn how to do this. So we've got no shortage at all to do COVID testing. Thank you very much for your attention, and stay healthy.